Today I'm replacing my crankshaft damper because it came flying off while I was driving, and this is how I did it. So first thing, to make it easy to get to the bolts, you don't have to do this. Some people don't do it. I did it. I pulled the front end off, and fan shroud, air box, drained the radiator, took the radiator out. Tied the condenser up and out of the way so that I could get to the crank pulley. And with an impact gun and a 21mm socket. I didn't have a short socket, so I had to use a chrome non-impact socket, but it worked fine. Took the crank pulley bolt out, and then I used a Maddox puller here. The kit comes with 2 of the correct length bolts. There is another correct threaded bolt, but it's longer, so you have to shim it. Otherwise it will run into the block if you tighten it in, because all 3 have to be tight against the puller. And there's some other videos where people use the wrong thread bolts. The silver bolts are not the right ones. You got to use these ones here. And this comes, all these come in this kit, this Maddox kit. That's from Tractors, from Harbor Freight. What's this? MG521. And the bolts that you need are the M8 125 by 66mm. And it comes with 2 of them. Like I said, the third one here, this is M8 125 by 80mm. If you want to use that one, you got to shim it. Otherwise, you can go buy the correct length one separately, so that you have 3 bolts to pull the pulley. And the pulley was very tight. I had to use a lot of leverage to get it off. And here's a new one. And I've already prepped it with anti-seize and a crankshaft as well. And I'm going to use the other tool to reinstall it that I had to order. Okay, this is the tool that I ordered and got it from Summit. This is an installation tool for the crank pulley. And then you see that it threads into the crank, and there's a square washer that tightens against the harmonic balance, and you tighten the bolt how it presses it on. The installer tool comes with a square washer, and it's a piece of junk and it just bends, so I have a larger round washer over top of it to help install. Okay, so the new pulley is on and most of the car is put back together. I just wanted to say that I didn't make this video to be like a step-by-step on how to do this, but really to just go over a few things that I saw were not mentioned in some of the other videos, or things that I saw that people were doing wrong. And I just want to give a few tips that would help this installation go smoother. First thing about the taking off the pulley, and earlier in the video I said that I shimmed the 1 bolt that was longer in the kit. I just want to clarify that that's a 10mm socket with a supplied washer that made up the difference, and that worked perfectly for that longer bolt. Again, you do not want to use this bolt without a shim, because you will drive it into the timing cover. So 1 long bolt, and then there was 2 of the correct size bolts to make 3. And again, this was hard to get this thing off. I had to use quite a bit of leverage to get it to go, but getting a bolt out was easy with this impact. And again, I had to use a short socket. Even with the radiator and the fan shroud out, there wasn't enough room for a deep well socket to get the crank bolt out, so this just barely fit, and this impact took it off no problem. And I put it back on no problem. I did use a torque wrench to do the final torquing on it, and to torque these bolts to 130 foot-pounds. And here's the old bolt, by the way, because I did replace it before I put the new pulley on, and or when I put the new pulley on. I went to a dealership and got it. It was like $9. So it's not going to be easy to torque that bolt, because you're going to see that the engine rolls over when you try to put the torque wrench on it. There's a couple of things that you can do to stop that from doing it. The method that I chose was to just use the serpentine belt, put it around the crank pulley and then around the AC pulley, and then vice grip it. Use the old serpentine belt, don't use the one you're going to use. and then I held the slack with one hand and torqued it with the other hand. So I was able to get 130 foot-pounds out of it without it turning. That belt will grip pretty good. So yeah, I know that it's in there correctly. Another thing I want to go over was that the socket for the insulation tool that I ordered from Summit is a 32 millimeter socket. So I just happen to have one for taking off axle nuts. That was the right size, so that worked out perfect. But again, make your life easy. Pull the fan shroud, pull the radiator, tie up the condenser out of the way, because you need all that room to get in there with the right tools. Otherwise, you're going to be just fighting with this. And the other thing I want to say about taking off the front end, where some people say that they don't do it, the reason I did it is because for bolt access. So if you're going to disconnect the radiator from the condenser, you got 4 10 millimeter bolts, two on top and 2 on bottom. 2 down there, and then there's, let's see where it's in right there in the corner. So that separates the condenser from the radiator. And then to get all that stuff out, the very first thing I did was to pull this radiator support, which there's 4 13 millimeter bolts, 2 on each side. And then I was able to drop the fan shroud. Now I have the car jacked up like about 20 inches or more, so that I had plenty of room to drop that radiator and fan shroud and tilt it out, because it's got to come out from the bottom. So get your car jacked up about as high as you can get it, so you have plenty of room to work under here. So anyway, hopefully this helps you guys. These are a couple of tips that I figured out that were, like I said, weren't mentioned in the other videos. So it's really made life a lot easier. So if you guys have any questions or anything like that, I'll be happy to answer them in the comment section. But other than that, all I gotta do is put on the front end, and then we're done. I'm gonna wait till my kids get out of bed so they can help me put this on, and I'm gonna take it for a drive and make sure everything's good.